Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is 100 million years in the future. Before we get started, real quick, if you'd like to support this channel on Patreon, you get no commercials. There is an email where we can talk back and forth, and you can share your experiences with me. And you get advanced videos on Sunday. And if you're interested, there is a link in the description. We have some new patron of Astral Club. Jasmine is an Astral Scout. Ashley Tews, Tewes, is an Astral Master. Sophia Mook, that's Muke or Muke, is an Astral Master. And Kira is Astral Ascended. I want to extend my thanks to these people for supporting the work of Astral Club. Okay, you might recall that I have had a trip to 100 million years previously, but I just felt that I hadn't really done a thorough enough job describing that future. So I decided to go back and maybe fill things out a little bit. So there's probably some territory that I covered previously, but I think I fleshed it out a little bit more as far as Earth changes and also some of the life that I saw existing in that time. So hopefully you'll find this interesting. Now I'm working off my notes here, and they're always scrawled when I get up in the middle of the night, so I'll do my best to make them legible and understandable. When I projected into that distant future, I do what I always do. I fly faster and faster with my will fixated on 100 million years in the future. Eventually, a time channel opened up in the sky and I flew down it. I soon lost consciousness. When I regained consciousness, I was disoriented. I was looking at the Earth and nothing made sense until I realized that I was, in essence, looking at the Earth in an upside down fashion from how we're used to seeing it. Now, of course, when you're in space, there is no right way up for Earth. I suppose our map makers over the years had to, for the simplicity of a two-dimensional map, decided, okay, this is going to be north and this is going to be south, and that's how we're going to look at the Earth when we map it out from space. So I reoriented myself so things looked a little bit clearer to me, although there had definitely been very substantial changes over the next 100 million years. The sea levels had definitely risen, and they had risen substantially in this time period. I think the reason for it was quite obvious to me because as I was hovering there in space, I saw no ice caps, nothing in the north but ocean. And as far as Antarctica was concerned, there was a green and brown continent there below me without any substantial ice that I could see. That definitely caught my attention, so I decided to go in closer to this new Earth and try to make some good observations and store it away so I'd remember it when I got back to my body. I was hovering above Africa and southern Europe, so that was the first area that I surveyed. The first major difference I noticed was there was no Mediterranean Ocean any longer. Instead, Africa had collided with the southern European / Eastern European continent, and a huge mountain range had risen where the Mediterranean Ocean had once existed. Next, I saw the Saharan area of Africa now had a large ocean in the middle of it that had covered a good portion of Saharan Africa today. And dotted around that new large body of water, there was greenery. And it looked like the bit of Saharan Africa that was still above water had started turning green again. And if you go back in history, some thousands of years ago, we've found evidence by pictures that were put on walls and caves and what have you that showed a wide variety of tropical plants and animals that had existed in that area in a much wetter environment. And I imagine that a lot of that had reoccurred in this distant future. The East African Rift had completed its movement, and a huge section of Africa that is to the east of that East African Rift had split off and gone into the ocean. So the continent of Africa was seeing some definite changes here. Next, I saw that southern Africa and a good portion of West Africa were also underwater. Next, I decided to check out Europe. And what I saw was, also definite changes in the land that is currently above water in our time. I saw the portion of England and Scotland currently, I could still tell from its shape that it was certainly the England that we know today, but much of the coastline that we know today had gone underwater. It looked to me like London if it had still existed, and of course I saw no evidence that it still existed. Indeed, I saw no evidence of mankind anywhere on this planet, which I guess shouldn't really surprise us. I mean, 100 million years in the future, our species in its current form has only existed, 250,000, maybe 300,000 years? Now we're talking 100 million years, and a lot can happen in that time. The low countries were mostly underwater. There were some little islands that still existed above water, but there have been some definite changes. As far as Russia was concerned, there was portions of Russia in the far north that was below water. And if you looked, as I flew further into the Asian continent, I saw that many of the coasts of China had been eroded. Much of southern China was now underwater. Japan was gone. I saw no evidence of it. As far as Australia, it was still there, but northern Queensland and central and south Australia were largely underwater. So, certainly that continent had experienced quite a bit of change as well. I noticed that Europe, or not Europe, sorry, the North American continent, because I decided to continue going towards, now the North American continent from Asia. I noticed that the Mississippi area was now a huge inland sea. And there was a large amount of very tropical type ecosystems all along this new inner sea in the middle of the United States, or what is the United States today. California was really just a series of islands, and Florida was gone completely. The eastern coast was also heavily eroded. But, you could still see remnants of what I recognized as the eastern part of the country. Certainly, all of this affected me quite deeply. Whenever you see changes like this, it always causes a profound sense of isolation, of being a lost soul in a brave new world that has no connection seemingly to you or any experience that you've ever had in your lifetime. And you're just confronted with such drastic change that you feel adrift in this strange place that you have come to. But I tried to master my emotions and realized that I wanted to get more information here and I wanted to take advantage of this time while I could. I decided to leave the United States for now because it was affecting me. It was my home country and it just was bothering me about the changes that had undergone. Not to mention the fact that I saw no evidence of any of the civilization that we're so proud of today. I headed to Antarctica to just get away for a little bit. And when I arrived there, as I said, there was no ice anymore. Instead, we had this large continent that was largely green and brown, with a large body of water sort of bisecting the continent. It was still together, but it was almost bisected by this water that had now appeared. And I assumed that, when the ice caps melted, that some of that water remained while the rest of it had flowed into the oceans, raising the ocean levels. I just flew around that area looking for anything interesting when I saw below me black, furry, grazing animals. They were grazing on these grasslands. Now, today, the icy continent of Antarctica doesn't feature really any land animals to speak of. There's sea lions near the shore, and certainly there's the famous penguins that also tend to exist near the shore. But that's it. However, in this brave new world where Antarctica was now green, I saw these grazing animals, and as I got closer, as I said, they were black and furry, and they were about 10 to 12 feet long. So let's say, 3 to 4 meters for our metric friends. And as I got closer to them, I looked at their faces, and their faces to me looked seal like. And that got me thinking. And of course, I'm just speculating here because when I arrive in these futures, I have no way of telling what happens or what happened over 100 million years. I'm not given that kind of information suddenly on a platter. I wish I was. I thought, is it possible that in some way in this changed world, seals went back to land and over millions of years somehow changed into these present land dwelling creatures? Or is it a case of some sort of convergent evolution? Convergent evolution is when different species in different time periods evolve similar traits due to not because they're related in any way, but because there's a common reaction to environmental factors that repeat over periods of time. And those environmental factors encourage certain types of evolutionary changes. It fosters ones that are adaptive, and it discourages those that are not adaptive to the environment. So it's one or the other. These could be completely different creatures, nothing to do with seals, but that's what they reminded me of when I saw them. I decided to go back to North America again because I'd kind of calmed down a little bit. And I wanted to spend more time exploring the new inland sea that had that existed now where the current Mississippi River now exists. But of course, it had now expanded dramatically, all the way from the Louisiana area of present day U.S. all the way up to the virtually the top of the United States. As I zoomed in closer and closer, I saw, as I had indicated previously, that a very changed environment. Today's Midwest is, covered with crops and grasslands, but this Midwest in 100 million years was very different. Like I said, it was very tropical. I saw a lot of marshland, and there was certainly a lot of insect life that was in the area. I saw a variety of reptilian type creatures. I saw large snakes. But what really fascinated me is as I looked more closely at the inland sea, I saw quite a lot of large crocodilians. So it seems like that species did what it always has done in the past, which is occupy these tropical type niches. And without humans around anymore, probably not for a long time, they had reasserted their dominance. Crocodilians, along with sharks and snakes, have been very successful over the periods of Earth. And it looks like they had continued to be successful in this distant future. I saw very large crocodilians. In matter of fact, one particular one that I decided to examine more closely that was floating on the surface of the this new inland sea. It looked to be about 25 feet long, or about 7.5 meters, let's say. And it looked very similar to what I would consider a saltwater type crocodile today. It was cruising and looking for prey. So I decided to get closer. I was probably about 50 feet up or so, looking down at it, trying to examine it very closely, when suddenly it must have seen me because it leaped from the water with its jaws parting and then snapping essentially, I don't know, maybe 15 feet below me. It seemed a lot closer than I would have liked it. And that caused me quite a start. Luckily, I was high enough up, and that was purely by chance, because I had no fear of it being a spiritual being without an ounce of flesh on me. But yet, I'm glad I was high enough up, because believe me, the psychic trauma of having a large crocodilian attempt to eat you, even when it can't really get its grip on you or can't do any damage, it can definitely be intimidating. Now, I was vibrating highly enough in this particular time zone that I'm not sure that it would have even been able to get me if I'd been lower. It depends. It depends on the vibratory level when you're in the future. Sometimes you're insubstantial but can be seen. Sometimes you can be seen and you're substantial. Now, in either way, in either case, I couldn't have been harmed, but there's psychic trauma associated with this kind of stuff. So I was quite glad that the beast ended up falling back into the water defeated. I reacted and darted up into the sky and headed out away from this new inland predatory inland ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, and I started flying along the new coast. I was flying for quite a while before I saw some activity far below me. As I zoomed in closer, there was some sort of a large animal in the water that that had died, and it had the appearance of a whale, but it was very different looking from a whale. It was much longer than it was fat, which is not how I typically think of whales. But at any rate, it was dead, whatever it was. And once again, was this a future whale or was this just another example of convergent evolution? I don't know. Certainly, either one could be a possibility. But that's not what really got my interest. What got my interest was the shark below me that was feasting on this huge carcass. And this shark, I guess when I saw it, I immediately thought of a megalodon because this thing looked to me to be around 50 feet long or around 15 meters long. However, it didn't look like the megalodon that I recall. It didn't even really closely resemble an overgrown great white shark. No, to me, it looked more like a mako that had been increased in size. There was a swept back dorsal fin, and it had a huge grouping of very sharp shark teeth, and it was taking out huge lumps of flesh from this deceased demi whale, and it was quite intimidating. And this time I stayed very far up. I probably was at least a couple 100 feet up, looking down on this scene. It was quite amazing just watching this process, realizing just how different things can get over that period of 100 million years, and how without humans things change, but they tend to repeat in certain cycles. And perhaps everything I was seeing was just a different replay of some of the distant past when water levels had been a lot higher and temperatures had also been similarly very high. It was about this time, and I think it was because of the excitement that was caused by me watching this enormous, monstrous shark ripping apart this future cetacean-looking creature that just got me a little extra excited, extra stimulated. And that's a bad thing when you're trying to maintain an astral projection, even in the future. You have to try to maintain emotional equilibrium. Unfortunately, I think I started losing it, and I felt the call pulling me back to the present. When I awoke, I got up and I jotted down my virtually illegible notes so that I could relate this future experience to you. If you liked it, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, make sure the bell's on so you're notified when the Wednesday at 2 p.m. and the Saturday at 8:15 a.m. Podcasts are posted. And that's Eastern Time US or New York City time. Please, I would love to see your questions, and any comments that you have to make are very welcome. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.